I feel the pressure's on you, Ant, now, more than me.
I'm feeling it too. I mean, firstly, I'm very honoured to be here interviewing you in your manner.
Are you still head of London? You're head of London Libraries?
Not anymore.
No, he was head of London Libraries.
Passed the mantle on. But
so how I met Ant, a good 2 years ago now, and I become London Libraries ambassador for a while. And so when I went to do the speech at Wembley, wasn't it? Yeah. Not at the stadium, at the civic building near to it, and I was telling them I used to work at Bancroft Road Library, which was a lovely library, really nice. I think the local history still. I went and did a talk there the other week, but it was a proper library. My sister got me the job there. It was a Saturday afternoon job. I think it was the first part-time job I'd had, and she said, "Don't show me up," but I did. I got sacked. I got sacked for doing yoga because I read the Upanishads quite young around that time. Probably at that time at the library, the Hindu, famous, holy sort of books. I read that and I got into yoga. So he caught me doing yoga, Mr. Vincent, walked up to the office. So he told me off for doing that. I'd be leg wrapped up around my neck or something, And then I used to get the old Jewish geezers that went in there. They were all leftists. They were Stalinists, Trotskyists, Leninists. And I'd get them at it. Where they'd have an argument, and I'd say, "But he just thinks you're stupid," and I think he thinks he's morally superior to you because he thinks that you just want to work everything out through violence. Because they used to call the Stalinist blokes tankies, so they'd start arguing. So yet again, Wardle in the office, and they were called users, And then the third time was just for I got talking, with some users, and got. Hauled into the office, so 3 strikes and out. So I told the libraries conference that day, London Libraries, about that, and they said if you did that now, we would give you promotion. Doing yoga, community stuff, and all that. We'd promote you. Making use of the building. So I thought, I won. Yeah. Sorry, Anthony.
No. Yeah. And actually that leads on really well because one of the reasons why John became a London Libraries ambassador was because of the first edition of your autobiography, which is 15 years ago now that was published. So originally Memoirs of a Geezer, now Dark Luminosity Memoirs of a Geezer. Yeah. But the reason I approached you about that London Libraries ambassador thing was because in the original book, which I'm sure it's still in there as well now, there was a lot of references to libraries at different points in your life that had quite important moments to what you became or what changed you. So, thinking about, when you joined Pill.
That's right. Yeah.
And also when when you were coming off of your addiction issues, kind of one of the first steps was that book that you read in, I can't remember the library.
Bancroft Road Library. I went down there because I just thought, right, I'm having blackouts and I'm drinking too much. I've got a real issue here. So I went down and I thought, right, I'll sort this out. Let's go down the library. That was your font of wisdom. That's where it was like you could get information. And I looked up alcoholism and I found a book by Jewish very well-regarded man called Max Glatt, who wrote a very slim tome. I don't think you can get it now. Are you an alcoholic? And he's got the famous graph in there that goes right the way down to the bottom. And I wasn't far off the bottom. And I kind of realised, I'm really in trouble here. So, libraries played a big part. As Sir Alex Ferguson said, libraries and swimming baths. That was the 2 civic places you'd use the most. And
just thinking about your addiction issues, because obviously that's coming off the first part of your career. Big fame with Public Image Limited, successfully moving into a solo career. And then obviously the addiction issues became quite strong, didn't they? And that kind of took you on another path. But obviously we're talking quite a long time ago here, aren't we?
Yeah, I was clean and sober 38 years on October the 23rd. the important thing is, am I mental? I don't think I am. You know, I mean, it's all well and good staying away from the booze, but some people, in my view, go a bit mental, and they, you know, they don't drink, but they get a bit withdrawn from life and all that. So it's not just staying away from booze; it's staying a kind of real human being, you know, and not being all uptight and, you know, being happy without it, really, you know.
And coming back very much stronger, wasn't it? Because obviously things had to kind of get a little bit more challenged, a little bit worse to get better, wasn't it? Because obviously, you know,
that's
time.
right. Yeah, so I read that book. I still wasn't jacket in, but I ended up going to AA. It's no surprise, you know. It's Alcoholics Anonymous, but, you know, over the years, I felt daft saying it. Well, I went to this place where, you know, you have meetings for people that drink, you know, have got a problem with booze, and people go, "Where's that?" You know, and so you kind of just think, well, I just tell people, I don't care really, you know. So I did that. It was a big life changer. So I mean, I was 28 years of age when I stopped drinking at a time. So I've had more sober years than not, you know. And you know, it was great because if I hadn't stopped drinking, I wouldn't still be touring and doing stuff, you know. So it was a great thing to do.
Absolutely. And obviously, I mean, this is a major reworking since the last book. So just quite interested to think your kind of thought process, or what it felt like to go back after 15 years, and obviously a very busy 15 years, kind of how you reflected from the first edition of the book to the latest version. Well, you know, how you went through that.
Well, I should probably say what was the motivation for the first book was, you know, you want to kind of tell your story, but I wanted to document how I grew up, because I knew it was like it was already a different world by then. It's really like a different world now. I wanted to capture that for my sake of my sons, you know, write it down, and maybe for the sons and daughters of my peers or something, you know. It just felt a good thing to document that, how that world was then, you know, post-war, you know, because it was a very different society, for better and for worse, you know. So I wanted to do that. 15 odd years passed, so I was, you know, I'd moved up north by that, you know, at the end of the first book. So there was 25 years to catch up on, you know. Well, I'd got married before then, but we had kids, so I could talk about my sons and, you know, and all that stuff towards the end. But I also expanded some sections, you know, little bits. I remember they took, for some reason, they edited out the stuff about council houses and all that, which I'd written in the foot, which was basically, I had a council place in Shadwell, Dellow Street, and I didn't agree with the right to buy, you know, because I just thought, well, it's all well and good now, but you're going to end up, well, you need this, because that place was a hard to let place, but it was fantastic for me as a reasonably short-term measure. Like banging on the dole was really handy as a short-term measure, you know. And so I didn't agree with that. And of course, you know, one of the things I'd realised at that time, you're bound to end up with a terrible shortage of housing stock, which of course has happened. So as a joke about, you know, there probably some government or other will commission the building of new houses run by the local authority called council houses, you know, probably, you know. So it was and my whole note was formed by that kind of municipal socialism, you know, civic sort of, you know, proper socialism, whereas we were in Smithy Street, and then they knocked Smithy Street down. They knocked all the old houses down, slum clearance, and lots of people went out to Essex. My old man he was a crank, God bless him, El Alamein veteran, and he was an oddball, you know, and everyone was a bit scared of him, you know, basically. But he was never going to leave this area. He used to call everyone on the estate, he used to call them the rabble round here. And even if he wore a shirt, he'd have it immaculate shirt sleeved all to say he was ex-army, you know, and he just thought they were a rabble. So I think he saw a lot of the people in the East End as a defeated army, weak in spirit or something, you know. I mean, it's all a bit of a laugh, it's all a bit of a hoot, you know. But so we were never going to move out, where some of our relatives moved out to Romford and Harold Hill. So we get the green line from just up the road, Mile End Road, and that was the country to me, going out to Romford and Harold Hill. It was that you're on a green bus and you're going what felt like miles out. It was really exciting, you know. And so lots of the family reallocated to Essex, and I was really glad that I never went out there, you know. Thank God, you know, it is a bit bleak really for me, you know. No, I mean, they're all out there now, and you know, that's where you go. If you want to find a Cockney now, you go to Loughton and all that, I suppose. But Buckhurst, still, they call it Buckers, don't they? They're all out there, and it's fine, you know. But yeah, and so the East End I grew up in, as that thing's kind of gone. It's moved on, and it's just good to document it for what it's worth, you know.
Absolutely, and obviously, a hell of amount of ground covered in the last 15, 25 years in the book. But also, what's quite interesting, something's quite come in full circle now, isn't it? Because obviously you're still incredibly active as a musician, performer. If you haven't seen the Invaders of the Heart, it's an incredible band. And you're revisiting Metal Box, which is obviously one of the kind of linchpin classic albums.
Well, these are the bonus years, so I must admit this was a really busy year. We toured America, the book come out, and I did think to myself, will something give? Like, you know, with me physically or mentally, you know, like a gasket blown on an old Ford Anglia or something. And sure enough, I've done my best. So I've got a herniated disc at the moment. So it's been really painful, you know. So right now I'm not moving fast at all. I've got the venue wrong tonight. I thought it was the Idea Store. Yeah. So I'm like, moving at like 1 mile an hour. And I'm a bloke who likes to stride along, you know. So I'm really feeling it at the moment. But yeah, it's gone kind of full circle. So I had another look at Metal Box, which, as we all know, is a bit of an iconic record, and made it a fuller, more developed record with great respect. The original record's a great record. It's like a real kind of like, to me, I think it's an accepted fact that music movements follow the comparative art movement by sort of 30, 40 years. So Monet would have been 40 years ahead of Berlioz, you know, with the Impressionist movement and all that. And I think with post-punk movement, we were the music equivalent of the abstract expressionists of the 50s. So very abstract, emotional, and we were hedonists and, you know, quite childish and teenagey in the way that probably a lot of the abstract expressionists was, you know, like, you know, hating anything bourgeois or sort of contained, you know. So it was good to come back at that record, and you know, it's quite a brave record, but just do it. So when I started it with John Klein, when I'd done it with John, as you know, it was lockdown, because me and Anthony and John run a thing called Tuned In. So it's a community venture in South London, in Merton. And so when I sent the first tapes to John, Albatross and Pop Tones, he said, no, look, just stop. Are you sure? Because he thought we'd get murdered for doing it. I said, just trust me, just do it. And he did, and it all turned out good. But yes, I mean, I'm 66 now, getting me pension. But yeah, it's kind of obviously this is the last few furloughs, you know.
Yeah. And I suppose the other interesting, obviously, I mean, you've worked with so many amazing, iconic musicians, and sadly it's getting to that point where we're starting to see, so, you know, some of the big artists that you've worked with, just thinking some of the ones that we've lost sadly over the last few years, from Keith Levine, Sinead O'Connor, Pharaoh Sanders. Just wondering how that kind of fed into the book, just, you know, those reflections on some of those massive collaborations you did, some which people know about, but some where, like the Bjork one, Play Dead, where you didn't even have your name credited on it, but obviously it's that.
Well, yeah, the Bjork one was a funny one, because I got on all right with her. I didn't like the geezer, David Arnold. I just didn't really like the geezer. And so I was with Ireland. It was Bjork, David Arnold and me, and I said, I want my name off it, because I thought the geezer was a bit of a cunt, basically, you know. and just didn't like him. There's a story there. Didn't like him. I said, just take your name off. I don't really want to be, keep me publishing on it. I'm not a complete fucking idiot, So just got another sync, funny enough. So that it's funny. You do something on a wet Wednesday where put the bass down, put a couple of keyboards and a beat down, and he said, "All right, okay," and then he got his how to write James Bond themes down and sort of done that. He praises me now. Somebody was asking him, he went, "Oh yeah, he's a really good guy," and I thought, "You're a liar." But anyway, none of it matters, But anyway, I took my name off of that one. But yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't know I played on. But I've done a few things over the years, but there's been I never really had a sort of career plan, I was just a kid from round here. I was cranky, I wouldn't use Stepney Green Station as much. For some reason, I'd OCD-ish. I had to walk up Whitechapel. I couldn't walk on the cracked pavement. When I went through what they called the Jewish estate, I had to go clockwise round it. And the day I went anti-clockwise round it, I got into pill. So magical thinking, So I was just a funny kid who played bass because it made me feel calm, And I was in a certain kind of right place at a right time. I mean, so much of life I've come to realise is karma, which is, you have a sort of main cause, but you need, for a seed to take, you need the right, if you're growing thyme or something, you've got to have the right soil, the right water conditions, the right light, so everything has to come right, and all the conditions come right for punk. Post-war, very angry generation with nothing to lose. It was very boring, grey world we lived in. If you look back then, it was all sheets of corrugated iron everywhere. If you look at old episodes of The Sweeney, which is all not set around here, it was the South West London Regional Crime Squad, I think it was sort of based on, and so it's all around Putney and Wandsworth, where a lot of those areas like Battersea were very just as run down as the East End, really. The East End always took the biscuit because it was just so many people, so many poor people in such a dense sort of area,
Yeah, but also, of course, now you've been 25 years up in Stockport, but obviously you're kind of now spending half your time down here again. So how does that feel, kind of being back in London? Obviously not in the East End now, but back in London.
When I moved up north, I used to stay at the Chelsea Arts Club. So someone got me in there, and at that time, for years, I could have a room there whenever I wanted. They got a kind of different thing way of booking. You can still do it if you want, but I've ended up staying down there a lot of the time now, and I never lost the connection with London. Saw it sort of change. Never lost the connection with it. Like being in town, you do feel like a ghost at times because all the people you knew have gone. So in this borough, I probably only know. I've got an elderly aunt who still lives here. I probably only know 4 or 5 people now. But, life moves on. Everything sort of changes. Nothing's permanent anyway in life, So once you embrace that, it all kind of flows. But I still like bowling around London. I still like going on buses and, I think the transport system down there is just unreal. There's so many little nooks and crannies, and the overground now, is all integrated. It's just mad. So I still like coming to town, and I like being over at Merton. I got a bit fed up with it round here because it got so determinedly trendy, the whole Hoxton mob, who, I was working there at, through the 90s in Hoxton, and Hoxton was just about, I think, the toughest area. You had that reputation. It was quite tough if you walked through there, People like Vince would sort you out, my mate, who's out of that manner. It's quite a tough place. And then we saw it change over the years, and there was that program Nathan Barley. Do you remember that? Which people might know it. Check it out. It was the first kind of comedy parody done on a London hipster, And so I just, kind of, I went to, I come out, I still got to see Tottenham play. I still got a season ticket, and I got to Highbury and the Victoria line went up the wall. So I just got out. I thought, fuck it, I'll jump on I'll jump on a train and go to, you know, where it takes me. And I went to Homerton, had a walk through Hoxton, Homerton, and went to AA meeting, and God bless them, I mean, all round there, the whole area. I just thought, why, just fucking wankers, you know. But that's me, you know. So I feel the same when I'm in the Northern Quarter in Manchester. Just think tossers. In Berlin, Brooklyn, you know, Brooklyn's just, I used to love New York, but now you never play Manhattan, you play Brooklyn, and it's just more tossers. Tossers with long beards, and yeah, it's just me, I'm just old, I suppose, you know. Whereas what I like about our thing, where Merton's so the west part of it, Wimbledon's quite well to do, isn't it? Anthony's up in a state of the east part of it, so we get a lot of people from the flats, and as Anthony knows, they're my favourite people there. So I like South London's, that part of South London, I don't know if Mitcham will ever get gentrified, to be honest. You know, it's just totally unfashionable.
Yeah, it's fighting hard against gentrification. I can certainly assure you. Yeah.
And the people that come there, they're just ordinary people, and I like ordinary London people. You know, I like the mix of it with everyone there. It's fun, and you know, that was I don't like places that try too hard. And that's the thing with the hipsters, they're trying really hard with the silly tashes and all that stuff, you know. But it's just me, I'm probably a bit bitter, you know.
No. Well, I think you've seen so many changes, and I think it's interesting what's drawing you back to London as well, because obviously beyond music, I was going to come on to your family, but the other love of your life is Tottenham, so that kind of never leaves you, does it? And
well, I hate them as well, they're fucking useless. So they absolutely disappoint you. So Tottenham, you know, for certainly the last 2.5 decades, you know, just as you get a bit of trust, they let you down. So it's like a psychological war, and Tottenham can't be trusted, and that's probably on the pitch, you know, and that's probably a lot of it to do with Ennick. Yeah. It's been a great business thing. They used, you know, all us muggy season ticket holders putting money into the club year in, year out. And now, of course, with a new stadium, the message is, fuck off, you old cunt. Because they're you know, you can't get old person's discount from now on. And the name of the game is, people like me, horrible. They've spent all their money for years home and away watching them. But we go to the stadium now, I don't go and spend £500 in a shop. So you get all the Korean tourists come in, and you get people from America coming, and they make sure they get the tickets. They pay premium price for them tickets, and then they all spend. Got me lumbar cushion here. It's fucking lovely. Oh, and they all spend like 500, 600 quid each. You know, so that's where the money is. So I hate them, you know, but I still go. But as you know, I've got an affection now for AFC Wimbledon because I've got such an involvement with Tuned In, and of course with Cherry Red. So I'm very much based sort of southwest London now. Yeah,
because Cherry Red's got a lot of your back catalogue, isn't it?
That's right.
And still active. Yeah. And you're even referencing South London in your albums now, isn't it? Because that was the
that's
last,
right. Yeah,
one of the last solo albums.
That's because I'd be going to Tuned In. I'd get a bus somewhere, not even going directly there. I'd record on the top deck of the bus, and ended up making an album called The Bus Route to South London. Yeah. You know.
But also, you're saying about how active you've been. So you've had collaboration with Horace Andy this year.
That's
on
right.
The mix as well. So
I'm doing Ken Booth at the moment. Yeah. So it's the geriatric market, right? You know, and I'm the geriatric. You know, mixing them, but so doing that with John, So but that's come out, done well, and it's quite a conservative approach. The record company pamper it, don't want new stuff. You don't do new stuff now, no way. Not heresy, legacy songs by legacy artists. That's the name of the game now. You know? So you do all the sort of covers, but you dub it up a bit, you know, and it's a challenge to get it just right. These classic songs, you know. So you've got Ken Booth at the moment. I must say it's sounding good, you know. I was supposed to go out to Jamaica to work with Sly Dunbar, but I've had to postpone it because of the back. Last thing I want to sit on a plane for hours, you know.
But that must be... Does that feel surreal at all? Obviously, the guys that you grew up to, listening to, now you're working with them.
I absolutely love Jamaican music, so... people sort of, I have conversations with people to this day about David Bowie. He was a genius. I know he was all right, I remember the Larkman Gnome, fucking hell, and he was really good, and he was a nice person, obviously, and he was really a very intelligent bloke, but I just wasn't sort of going crazy about him, At the time all that was going on, and Slade, I liked a lot of pop music, but I liked Stevie Wonder, and I liked all the Jamaican music, so... And the Jamaican music seemed such a mystery, the way they played the drums. It's a funny old style, and my son plays on, so both my boys played on the Horace Andy album. My son's a good drummer, John T, he's good. So, if you'd said to me, obviously, all those years ago, you're getting to your 60s and you'll be making albums for Ken Booth and Horace Andy, I would fuck off, So, it's amazing,
But what about, and also, obviously, other big musical influence, the world music influences, which obviously started at an early age as well. Just wondering how you weaved that into your music over the years and the influences.
Well, it started over there, just about there, probably around about Paddy Power. There was a stall there, Paul's record stall, and he had a shop round the corner in Cambridge Heath Road, and he had the Blue Beat Top 40. And so I'd go there, get a single. The first single I ever bought there, my mum pressured me really, was Jim Reeves' Welcome to My World. Welcome to my world. But anyway, it was reggae that sort of started, just looking at something that's supposedly a bit foreign. It fascinated me. So I had this fascination for, and of course then actually artists like Augustus Pablo, Java, he was working doing Eastern kind of music, and I liked that the most. So you got this Jamaican geezer using Chinese sort of modes and scales and stuff. So it goes full circle. When I played that to me missus, who grew up at the time of the Cultural Revolution in China, then went to Liverpool. Can you imagine that? Authoritarian society with the red flag, go to Liverpool, comprehensive, don't speak the language, but you realise that the teachers are saying, no, fuck off to the teachers. So she's thinking, I think they said no to the teacher. Whereas if you did that in China, big problem.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's alike there is the red flag.
Yeah, that's right, that's it, yeah. Well, they always say the proper Scousers are blues, they're all Levertonians, to be fair, but it's the same argument at City and United up north. They always talk to me about it, and I felt I couldn't give a fuck. I play with a football golf, and I was playing football with a lot of blues and reds, but all the football golf is all reds. So I can't get out now because of the back at the moment, but every time we go and play, it's a post-mortem about United. And it's so boring because I'm Tottenham. What do I give a fuck about?
It's boring, but it's got to be a bit enjoyable as well.
When they're losing, when we beat them, I love it. Yeah. But anyway, so I then would listen to the shortwave radio. So I'd hear Kasum, and the reason I listened to shortwave was because of the radio oscillation would calm me down. Because you're living in a household that was quite intense, really. Looking back, I think obviously you haven't really got anything to kind of liken it to as a kid, so it was quite intense. So it was very uptight, I was a bit an uptight kid, and so I was quite OCD-ish, and I wasn't a complete freak or anything, but I had issues for sure, And so I played the shortwave radio oscillations, which are amazing. I mean, you can hear the stars talking to you from, shortwave. They reckon there's blasts of stars. They don't know if it's stars spinning round or if it's possibly aliens, trying to contact Earth. There was one blast happened in the 70s, 78 or something. They've never been able to prove it's come from a star, a dying star or whatever. And it had what a lot of people have read codes into it, but whatever. I listened to that, and then by default I'd hear Kasum, Radio Cairo coming over the airwaves. So I got into that as well.
How, when you were learning to play the bass, and then obviously starting out with Peel, how did you bring a lot of those influences? I mean, obviously the reggae influence you can hear straight away, but particularly those kind of, Eastern influences. I
just had a feel for bass. It's that thing, I don't know, like with Karma, the Buddhist the 12 stages of dependent origination with Buddhism sort of start, and they're a continuum really, but in a way for the sake of making it understandable, it's quite a complex thing to understand. They say if you understand that, you understand Buddha, but starts with, the first one's ignorance, and the second one, before consciousness, is mental volitions, movements, impulses, thinking, So you're carrying some karma from some part. I'm not into this thing. I was Joan of Arc, in a past life. I'm not myself in this life. How can I have been Joan of Arc in a former life? You're not yourself in this life anyway. That's all bollocks. You're trying to grab an identity that is permanently going and popping from life to life. As far as I'm concerned, just my view. But you're coming with something from some past experience or something. There's from some continuum of consciousness, because consciousness is the next thing. Consciousness of thoughts, and then senses develop and all that, and all this happens bang, like really, really quick. So all the time we're going through life completely conditioned, being triggered all the time, in whatever way. But so basically I had some affinity with plant bass. So I just felt really at one with it. I wasn't intimidated by it at all. Now, there's only ever been 2 or 3 things I've done. Like I went clay pigeon shooting in Avonmore with my wife many years ago, and I was shooting all that. And the bloke, who was a jock, obviously, he got a bit upset and said, "Why'd you say it's your first time? It's not your first time." I said, "It is. I've never done clay pigeon shooting. I was even shooting the clay rabbits. Just knew, smooth action, could do it." Now, when I started to drive, I couldn't do that. It took me 3 attempts to drive. Now, Vince, maybe I should say this, but I think Vince might have been there. We were upstairs at Ronnie's many years ago. You wouldn't even remember it, Vince. There was a certain geezer who used that word, "Too late, lads, the bird has flown," when the flying squad come in the room. So I won't say his name, but there were a lot of other geezers there from our mob. Now, I don't know what Vince, but some of them were taking heroin. I don't think Vince was at all, but I did. And it was the first time I'd taken it. And so they all went off to the toilet being sick. And I was just sitting there, and this bloke who was famous for this line, "Too late, lads, the bird has flown," when the flying squad burst into a party and a bloke had gone through the windows. So he'd run away, and all the net curtains were billowing, so very dramatic. And he kept talking to me, and he was the same thing. "Is this not your first time?" And I thought, "Don't shut up." And I'm quite chatty, but I thought, just leave me be. And I was wrapped in cotton wool. I didn't need anyone. I was self-contained, And heroin, so I never took heroin again. I suddenly thought, because Ronnie, who Vince would know as well, was my best mate really at school and everything. He'd ended up on Crime Watch and everything. He lived up Cambridge Heath Road. Anyway, the other end of Cambridge Heath, you go up towards Mare Street. Anyway, it's very nice flats actually. Some of the houses. They got hold of like one of the last proper nice houses built in the late 70s. Actually, up there for what it's worth. Really nice, because he lived in Homerton before that. Anyway, I'm digressing, But so anyway, I've just realised this is the cotton wool thing, So I had to leave it, but it come naturally to me, the opiates. So I never touched it again. Acid didn't, psychedelics didn't, because I was an altar boy, so I was wrapped very tight with Catholicism and all that. My old man's brother was a priest, so when I saw this image of people taking trips, in the 60s, I'm from Stepney, it was a really bad fucking move, there's a geezer that sort of does work for me, and he's all right. He's one of them white geezers with the locks and all that. I think I've got a problem with the Vikings invented them locks, apparently, I don't know. But he was. I was talking to him, and he said, "I make music." I was like, "Okay," and he said, "I assist people with." It's some other name for mushrooms. It's not in this country, so he's not breaking the law. I assist them with this. So he bangs gongs as people go through some therapeutic process. I thought, you cunt, But I did. So I was nice to him. I just thought, you fucking idiot, He's a nice bloke, to be fair. Yeah, he's in his 30s, you know, what do I know? He's a bit hippie-ish, but I just think he's a load of bollocks. But anyway, you know, they would have had a fucking turnout with me, I tell you, if they'd done it with me many years ago. But I like uppers. And so anyway, so back to bass. It was this thing that I could really do. And I did buy a book, So You Want to Learn Bass, and it had the first one I did was American Patrol, Glenn Miller, who's still missing. But anyway, right, people of an age who know that, but I shouldn't say that. It was great. I mean, Sid Lawrence Orchestra and all that's fantastic. But anyway, I suddenly thought, I know what I want to do. I want to make patterns. Mm-hmm. And how I made the patterns was open strings and going from the dots on the fret. And I still kind of like that. Mm-hmm. I've learned a bit of music theory over the years, but it just comes from that unconscious place, you know. So as you play with it, it's coming from a very deep, timeless place, and it's prior existing, in fact. So it's not even coming up; it's there, you know.
Is there any kind of big thought around the tone of your bass sound? Because, you know, it's one of those things that's so distinct. You say, you know, you put on Hamlet, that's Jah Wobble. Yeah, that's Jah Wobble straight away, you know, and you hear it, and it's...
I'm absolutely happy to, you know, I've not at all. You see lots of stuff on YouTube now with bassists doing all the slapping and people really into techniques and being drawn out into an extensionist kind of way of playing. Whereas for me, it was just about being calm, feeling it, and that vibration goes into the guts and stuff. So it's kind of, it's a good thing. And just repetition. So then, in a way, it becomes like a mantra, like you in breath, out breath, you know. And what happens with that natural process is the thoughts lengthen out and become gossamer thin, but the gaps in between them become very big. So that's the interesting thing when you're in between the sort of thoughts. Not that thoughts are bad. It's all the same fucking thing at the end of the day. There can only be a certain awareness. So it doesn't matter. But when you do that, you start to sink into being. You know, you're not thinking out into the external world so much, you know.
So with the bass, because obviously it was very revolutionary. I mean, people say when the original copies of Metal Box, you have to kind of weight down the needle just to stop it from jumping, because the bass is kind of jumping out so brilliantly. But when you were going through that whole process and recording that and obviously stuff before that, was it more just a natural thing? You just thought that's how I want it to sound? Or
very much. And a lot of that was reggae because they had it deep. And so when I'd go to Ronnie to the blues dances in Hackney, so these big old rundown Georgian places, and have it down in the basement. And what fascinated me with those reflex speakers, it takes quite a few yards for the signal to form. So it's quite unstable bass. So if the speaker's here, you might not even really hear it, people in the front row, but that lady there, that's where it'll form, you know, because it's resonant and it will form there. And what fascinated me with that was it would actually suck your trousers in, you know, the wave form. And of course it's all waveforms, and when you look at quantum physics now, increasingly, you know, we've all brought up, there's atoms and there's electrons and there's the smallest particle, and then increasingly you started hearing, no, there's something smaller, and in fact, these protons or whatever, they act like particles until you look at them, and then act like a waveform. So it's probably all one big fucking waveform, you know. So I think of it that way, as humanity, as a life, as the ocean, as a massive waveform. I'm in the misconception of being a limited, separated little waveform. The sort of eddy in the River Thames, if you like, that forgets it's the River Thames, you know, and it's a little eddy, you know. Yeah. We're not talking about that yet, but you know, so it's kind of waveforms, and a lot of it with bass, people talk about how do you get that sound. It's just the fingers, it's just your phrasing, you know, it's just those, just from being a bit percussive to being really sort of soft on it. And a lot of it as well with public image, with the unique sound, was down to Fender precision bass. So, that was, you could do those chromatic runs and it would sound like something, it would mean something, Yeah.
And you're back playing them again as well now, after all this time.
Yeah,
isn't
well,
it?
that's how that happened. Went off to do a couple of shows in Canada and America and then record an album with my good mate Bill Laswell. And so I said, they said, can you hire all the gear? I'm not even bringing a bass. I can't be asked bringing a big heavy Magnum, which I've been playing since '88. Tell you what, just get me a Fender P, because Fender, America's the home of the Fender P. They'll have great old classics there. You're not, when you do the gig, it's going to sound okay. I thought I'd be fine. First thing I got it's like, isn't it light compared to the Magnum, which is very heavy? And so that's nice and light. And then I started realising I could do all these chromatic sort of things, the way Annalisa and things like that. So it's very much to do with Fender, very much to do with round wound strings as well,
Thank you. I'm just looking at the time. I mean, we go on all
Yeah,
day, and I think we better open it out for some questions.
Yeah.
So, we've got any questions from the audience? Anyone like ask
Jess.
John a few questions?
Right, I know what's going to be asked. Yes, your father was there the night we smashed the full ceiling at the Vortex. I'm a memory man. Now go on. I'm a psychic. Go on.
Hi. Yeah, I've read some bits of your book, and you've got a very, very strong narrative voice, and I commend you for that. When you were writing your book, obviously you tried to condense an entire life into about 300 pages. How do you decide which are the best bits?
Well, you have arguments with the editor, for sure. So with the last one, the geezer who was editing it wanted me to edit and shorten sections that had already passed through the editing process with the original book. So I had to sort of talk to the guy, Dan, at Faber's, and go, look, this geezer's pushing a bit, I'm going to push back. He said, that's fine. So I pushed back a bit. And nice geezer, Ian Priest, nice bloke, but then he sent me his book. And I thought, fucking hell, it's the biggest fucking book I've ever seen. It's on British labels. It's that fucking thick, right? And I thought, and you wanted me to edit a few fucking cheeks? I didn't, But the first time round, quite a lot went. And I didn't know how much had gone until I checked it out this time, believe it or not. And the guy that done that, John Williams, who's got a crime writer, whose wife discovered the original manuscript, making it sound like some gothic script had been found. But I said to him, what have you... He said, oh, don't worry, all I'm doing, it's really good. I'm just taking out the stuff right at the end. So it just means it cuts off when you go up north. It means you keep all that stuff for another book. Well, I found out that wasn't exactly fucking true, actually. And it was a lot. I was quite naive and should have checked back, but no worries. There was quite a few things that kind of come out,
I also have...
So it's very difficult, but I suppose you try and keep to... You do a lot of self-editing. You try and keep to, when you go off and sell a funny little story, you kind of come back. One of the things that I did... who's the bloke Ian Peace, who wrote Damned United and all that. He had a thing in his book, he had italics, and I used that as a technique because I thought that was great for, here's the main narrative and here's some historical asides to what I'm discussing. So there's Aris, and that was one of the things I argued with Ian, the new editor, about. He just didn't see the point of it. And it's like, just don't worry, it's worked. People will get it. So, yeah, you just have to, you don't want to go off fighting too many other fires, I suppose, basically, because then if you start to lose the narrative, then it gets a bit dull, If you start telling too many tour stories, etc.,
Thank you so much. I probably have a lot of questions to ask you later about...
You can ask them now. If your dad, don't be embarrassed. If your dad's next to you, just ask now.
Can I ask, who wrote the lyrics to Still Leg?
I thought that was like a joint effort, wasn't it, Vince?
No, you, mate.
Did I do it? Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. Yeah. So that was, because he was still licked, yeah. And it was work. I wouldn't even use the word written. It was just thrown together. But what was funny, so we just had this, because this is from Saturday Morning Pictures, which Vince went to as well, Copperhead and all that. People would remember Saturday Morning Pictures. So we wanted to make a Saturday Morning Pictures kind of superhero. So it was Vince dressed with a black cape. So we had to drink, Vince would always have a drink. So we went to Gunter Grove where Lydon lived and knocked on the door. So that was always on foot alert around there where everyone was really fucking nuts, like, who's at a fucking door? So they go down, it was Youngie, wasn't it? Goes down, look through the door. There's some cunt there's a fucking geezer with a mask on. So they've all come flying out and Vince pulls the mask off. It was so funny. And they all had a laugh, but Lydon didn't like it, I don't think. And then another time when Lydon was living in King's Cross, wasn't it? Me and Vince on the drink, and we found a geezer, one of the poor old down and outs, and said, "You want to come and have a drink with us?" Okay, lads, I do that. I'll come. So he comes with us. So we go in and say, "John, we've got a mate with us. Do you mind if he comes in?" When you bring, so very nice. You still bring him in. So this top tramp comes in, the mether. And he's like, "Get him out!" and he still stayed for a while and had a drink, didn't he? Yeah. It's not a nice thing to do, and I wouldn't like it if someone done it to me, Anyway, yeah. But the geezer had a drink as well, so it wasn't like he didn't, give him a drink,
It's great to hear you're an enduring EastEnder and a Spurs fan. At the start, when you were coming through, when you were getting known, when your name was in the magazines and stuff, did you take your heritage with you, or were you trying to get away from it?
I've always tried to get away from it. No, that's just what I am. So actually, I probably would have done well. Look at Sting, who's a Geordie. I think he's a proper Geordie. Or who's the bloke who sung with Brian Ferry? Who I believe is a proper Geordie, and and a lot of the people I knew, I knew there's a few people around the punk scene on the business side, and I can understand it. They try and lose their accent. They try and conduct themselves in a different way because otherwise people think you're a bit thick, or they think you're a bit scary. But no, I've never tried to lose it, I mean, it's what you are, you've been formed. So I've stayed, and it all happened so quickly. I was very young, 18 years of age, and it wasn't a case of we worked for, 2 years doing gigs, building something up. It just all happened really quickly. So I was just who I am, didn't really worry about, don't give a fuck. Still don't, to be honest,
Hi. So I was very interested to hear what you were saying about council housing, and actually Alex Ferguson as it is. I'm from a pretty scratty town.
Do you live in a housing association place, right?
I don't, but I'm from a pretty scratty town in the northwest of England.
Whereabouts?
Fleetwood.
Okay, I know. Yeah.
And for
a geezer comes from there every week with fish for me up north. Yeah.
Yes, you know it well.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about Fleetwood's ground called Highbury, right?
It is,
and it's devoted to Arsenal, which is like that's got to go. But carry on. Yeah.
Didn't matter as much when we were 7 divisions down. They've just gone up. They went up 7 divisions in 10 years, so nobody knew about it then.
Well, Fylde are the team up there now anyway. They're not doing
great. Because the guy who owns Fleetwood is now in jail. But anyway.
Oh, right. Non-league football is quite an interesting, I found.
It is, right. So, as it is in Fleetwood, so whatever Thatcherism did during the 80s in Fleetwood, council house ownership, I found, did actually have something of an impact, a good impact. Would you feel better about council house ownership if the government had actually hypothecated the money into building more council houses over time?
Oh, well, absolutely. But I know it gave a lot of people a leg up. So, and a lot of people out in Essex and that, it worked, and everywhere, people in the East End. So, and they didn't agree with it, but they did it. So, for me, I just thought, no, I'm going to pass it on to the next person. I was fine. I've been all right. I bought a gaff in Bethnal Green, could afford to put a deposit down on it and all that, so it was all fine, you know. Everything rolled ahead. But I haven't got a thing. Anyone who took it was disgraceful, not at all. It gave a lot of people a leg up and a way forward. So those people, that's great. But then not only now people can't be housed properly, but, you know, for a lot of young people, where's the fucking future economically? It's pretty, you know, this is kind of pretty down for a lot of people now. They're not going to be able to afford a place. There's all sorts of bitterness and, you know, bad feeling at the moment. It's quite, it reminds me of the 70s a little bit at the moment, you know. And politics, people talk of the left, the right. I don't know. I mean, the old left, Jesus, gone. You know, it's gone. You know, it's something else. We run out of road with linguistics, designations sometimes. You know, the best we can do is left, but all those old Jewish blokes, they were left. Or councillors I knew were left. I was left, you know. When John Smith died, that was it. It's been something else since then. I'm not sure what you call it, neoliberal, I don't know. I never liked Blair, I don't like those people. It's tribal, it's gut level as much as anything. I'm not saying some of their social welfare was great. When I come in here, I had a burnt foot in the mid-90s and there was shit on the floor here. Disgusting. Mel Nurse had to come round and help me, you know. I'd scalded me foot, and the NHS early 90s, mid 90s was in a hell of a state, and Blair, you know, did the right things, and so it's not all bad, you know. But you know, they weren't not my people. They're not my tribe. I'm afraid, you know, that's tribal Britain for you, you know. Okay, yeah.
Hi, John. Thank you very much for what you've been saying. It's
You look familiar.
Absolutely super.
You look familiar.
Possibly.
Yeah. Looks a bit like Terry Penton, doesn't he?
One of the things I've always liked about your bass playing is, especially from the early Peel material, but one of the bass lines I've always admired is the one on Screamadelica.
Oh yeah.
And,
I can tell a story about that.
It really has a
Well, that was Andy Weatherall got me in, so that's great. So it's just a session, well paid, all right, lovely. Andy then goes, so that worked well. Andy goes back to Primal Scream and says, fucking, got to give him some publishing. Oh no. Oh no. So Andy tried, nothing. I don't care. You win some, you lose some. I mean, some people, you know, Steve Iddage will make sure I got paid certain sessions, you know, but you realise some people with the publishing, they're really, you know, well, they just weren't. So that's the one with that. Whenever I hear it, I just think, I don't get any publishing for this. But no, it's a good track, and Andy was terrific. Yeah.
Considering how many that's sold, not that I want to wind up at all.
Now I'm getting wound up. Yeah. No, I think he's in.
A few million, haven't
I
they?
don't. I think a lot of people that Bobby Gillespie, a lot of people seem to slag him off now. In Manchester, there's a few people.
He's not particularly,
He's not particularly liked kind of bloke. I mean, I've got nothing. He looks like one of them kids who at school would have had the perfect exercise books. There wouldn't have been pictures of German planes being shot down on it, you know, and all that caper. He's just a bit like the boy that he would have got his homework in on time, and he's cracked on. You look at times of it, you think, cool, you just can't believe how well you've cracked on.
Yeah.
But very nice entourage in that band. The one, Keith, was it one who died? It was lovely. So there was actually some really nice people around it, you know. So, you know, that's how it goes. They asked me to do the Screamadelica tour and offered me fuck all. And I said, well, you have to give me more than that. I'm not going to, you know, leave it then. You thought, well, you know, but that's some people in the business, you know. Yeah. I've never said that publicly, you know, because you don't want to be seen, but I just don't give a shit. So, you know, yeah.
Any more questions?
Time for one more, if not.
One more.
Okay, over to
lady here.
Hi. You said you sort of despaired for young people now because of the sort of political situation and the housing situation. But I'll try. But
Just bring it a little bit closer to your
you
mouth.
also said that it was very similar to how it was in the 70s, which out of which became a really sort of creative movement, didn't it? You know, with punk and then everything that, you know, although myself and lots of friends were living either in squats or in hard-to-let council flats and stuff like that. But we were all making clothes, making music, you know, and being really creative. And do you not think that even though things might be bad now, it's time for another really creative rush to happen?
Well, I think there is. I think if you look at social media, Instagram and all that, it's like a digital thing, but a lot of young people are very, you know, and where there's a will, there's a way, you know, but you have to say in some points of life, life's very unfair on the majority of people, you know, they're not going to get the breaks. And, you know, in this country with the class system, especially from that, I was born in the most meritocratic year, 58, you know. So we grew up, we knew there was a ceiling of sorts, but a lot of the bright grammar school boys and girls, you know, you could make your way forward in life. Not that I went to a grammar school, I should have done, I passed the bloody thing, but ended up not. It's fucking ridiculous looking back, but whatever. But it's we waste young people here. It's like on an industrial level, you know. Something most people don't get. It's called to be scrutinised for how intelligent they are, you know. So it's one thing with this government. I'm not mad on this government at all. Trust me, I'm really not. Don't get me started. But the private school thing I thought was, yeah, go on. See how they react to that. They won't like that, and they don't, you know. So that's where you're really going to clash with the establishment, you know, at that point. But yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. And you know, a lot of the time in like negative, you think, well, what should we do? Just give up, kill ourselves? You know, something to say to people. Yeah, keep on going, find a way. You know, and it was great in those days because you could sign on. There was space. You could find a squat. The squatting laws have changed now. You know, not that we were horrible. I mean, our thing was to let's find some hippies who have done the hard part, have done the plumbing, got the electric on and all that. We'll go in, smoke their dope, and then tell them at the end of the night, we can stay one more night, but then you're out. You know, it was terrible. That was there because we didn't want to do the hard work. It's like sort of a nature program. Do you know what I mean? You know, like with David Attenborough, and here along come the vicious wolves, who appear to be friendly, but you know, so we just you can stay one night. You have to fuck off in the morning, right? Yeah, but look, no arguing, fucking ponce. So that was it. Yeah.
Just a massive round of applause for Jah. Thank you very much.